All right, it passes the subcommittee. We've got something done. I like. Now we'll head back to 109 since that's what these folks are here for. Matt, would you start out by walking us through where we are with this bill?
Sure. So I don't believe the subcommittee has discussed this bill at all yet. We ran out of time last time that there was a subcommittee meeting. This bill requires the Maryland Department of Labor adopt by regulation the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code after review and with appropriate modifications. It also would allow for local governments to subsequently modify and adopt the ISPSC. I'll make that mistake several times, with certain local modifications. So I can go into the sponsor amendments on the bill, which you all should have received, I believe, in an email yesterday from me. Does everybody have that?
Okay, let's start with that.
But before we get into the sponsor amendments, can I just ask a question, please?
Sure.
I'm just trying to understand from the beginning, do we not have standards already that we're following? And the reason that I ask that is, in my former position, I know that we did it was local, obviously, but it had to do with pools and having at hotels, essentially having lifeguards. And I know that that's a little different, but it just seemed that there was some code that all pools had to follow. And so I'm just wondering I guess before getting to the amendments, what makes this different than I read it, but I'm not understanding why. I guess I'm just kind of surprised perhaps that we don't already have standards that we're following. Am I missing something?
No. There are counties with standards. Some counties have actually, to my knowledge, adopted these standards already with modification. But there's not a consistent set of standards throughout the state. And that's what this bill in part is attempting to do, is establish a consistent set of standards. Delegate Terrell.
Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to follow up.
Okay, go ahead, Jen.
Are there counties that don't have standards, or there's just not a statewide standard?
To my knowledge, there is not a statewide standard. As for counties without a standard, I'd have to check. I believe there may have been some testimony as to that. Okay. It looks like perhaps one of the individuals who's attending.
Yeah, I think John has his hand raised. Maybe, do you know if some of the counties have no standards at all?
No, ma'am. The COMAR 101704 has been in existence since 1992, covers all aspects of commercial pools. This particular bill only adds residentials to that. There has been no commercial approval in the state of Maryland, contrary to what they're saying, of anything to do with this bill, because we are currently under COMAR. And COMAR is working very well. I don't know why we need this.
Oh, thank you.
Just
Delegate Terrasa.
But what I didn't understand is 101704 covers residential or no?
No, ma'am. It only covers commercial pools.
Thank you, John.
I'm sorry.
So the question was whether there's some counties that don't have standards for residential pools then.
That's right. I think. Go ahead. Matt? Are there any counties that have no standards for residential pools?
I apologize. I just have to ask your indulgence. I'm reviewing my notes quickly.
Okay.
So while he's reviewing, can I ask a question as well?
Certainly.
So the testimony,
not the one who has to answer it.
The testimony said that I guess one of the folks testifying suggested a detailed study comparing the international code with the Maryland pool regulations, that the Maryland pool regulations were actually more comprehensive than the Maryland code. Do we have any follow-up on that or know any more about that?
I personally didn't hear anything, but Matt is in the middle of,
All right, so I'll save it till he's finished.
okay, let's see. Delegate Tarasa, you still have a question? Your hand up?
I do. So, and now I'm getting all turned around on this. So what, I'm not actually sure I understand what is a residential pool just a pool that somebody has at their own home?
Right, private pool
Is
that
it-
you might own or,
At your house?
yeah.
Right, but a private pool could also, like, in some, depending on how it's defined in the code, like a private pool could also be a pool owned by a homeowners association or a condo association or a,
Wouldn't be a private.
so that it wouldn't, I hear somebody maybe answering that question, but is that not defined as private? Is not combined, that wouldn't be residential in this code.
Hmm.
And I'm not clear if, I'm also not clear if the only thing this is adding.
Okay, I'm going to ask some of the advocates to respond, if maybe they do.
So my understanding of private in this instance is, or residential in this instance would be a homeowner, their personal pool, not a pool open to the public or
Like a homeowners association or a condo.
I guess
Right,
that would depend on whether or not that falls into classification of a public pool or a public.
they're
Well,
not
it's a-
public.
Well,
They're not public. It's only the people who live
sure. Um,
in that community.
I'm sorry. I would have to verify
Okay.
what's covered under Comar
I'm
currently.
going to ask Justin if you could weigh in for a minute. I'm going to see. Okay, you're unmuted, so go ahead.
I appreciate that, Madam Chair. That would be a semi-public pool, and I defer to my colleague Sean Stransby, who's a much more well-versed subject matter expert in this particular area. But
Okay.
that's my understanding is that would be a semi-public pool, would be a condo homeowners association.
Okay, can you, where'd he go? What did I do? Oh, can you unmute? Let's see. Oh my goodness.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sean Strauss by
There we go.
unmuted. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not used to this zooming.
No problem, and understood. In regards to the condos or the homeowners association pools, I do concur that those would be defined as semi-public pools. They would have to fall under the purview of the Maryland Department of Health regs. However, also with the adoption of the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code under the Maryland Building Performance Standards, they would have to comply for design and construction under the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. That we do not include operation and maintenance of those types of pools, semi-public or public though. So I just want to make that clear. This would only be for design and construction.
Okay, that was my understanding, that it was just, this bill relates only to design and construction and not to maintenance. Okay, any other questions? Delegate Weibel, you want to restate your question?
Yeah, let me, so Matt, during the testimony,
Mhm.
One individual testified that the International Pool Code wasn't as comprehensive as the Maryland pool regulations, and rather than adopt some brand new code, why wouldn't we just look at the Maryland pool regulations and compare them to the international code and figure it out from there? Do you know that to be true or have any comments on that?
In terms of, so I have not completely reviewed the ICC and the ISPSC code versus what might exist in Maryland for health and safety standards. But again, the ISPSC is focused on the construction, rehabilitation, development of these pools, the physical elements of the pools. It's not related to any health, safety, or operational. As I understand it, it is not. It has nothing to do with health, safety, or operation of the pools. So when questioned about whether or not ISPSC is as comprehensive as what might already exist in the state, you'd have to ask comprehensive how. Are you comparing apples to oranges? And I don't recall. I do recall, Delegate Weibel, that there was testimony to that effect. I'm looking now to determine who offered that testimony and what they might have been, what the basis of that claim might be, whether it was based on health and safety or design and construction of the pools.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Delegate Terrasa, who's got her hand up again. Jen? Is your hand up from the previous question, or are you?
I'm feeling very uncomfortable with this right now. I guess what I'm trying to understand is what somebody's telling us that this is only adding residential, but I'm not understanding if it's adding semi-public pools. And also when we're talking about health and safety, and I'm trying to find the testimony, but I'm having trouble accessing from where I am. But I thought that some of the safety is done through design and construction.
Yeah, I think the issue is about which regulations they come under. I think this bill relates to the construction and design regulations, the health department, and what other agencies are involved, Matt?
Here, specifically, the Department of Labor. And Delegate Terrasa, to your point about how some elements of design and construction do impact health and safety, the amendment that tries to create that bifurcation between the health and safety and the operations side and the design side, you'll note on page 3 of the reprint, Roman numeral 4, there's a requirement that before adopting each version of the standards, the department, here the Department of Labor, shall consult with the Maryland Department of Health on the effect of proposed changes on health and safety. So I would interpret that as to the extent that a change in design or of certain systems may impact health or safety, there is this input from the Department of Health.
Yeah, I mean, it may just be, and this was many a year ago. I was a pool operator in my lifeguard years, many years ago, but I'm just thinking about sort of drain and suction and all the other issues that are part of the design. I hear what you're saying, that consult with, but I guess I'm still a little, I'm not completely.
I'm going to see if I can get some of the advocates to respond to you, Delegate Terrasa. Mr. Wiley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So really what this does is it takes and harmonizes the requirements both from currently at the Department of Health as well as the local level to use one bedrock, one foundation of a code, the construction code, the ISPSC. So yes, the ISPSC does take into consideration suction entrapment as well as slope, diving board design, that sort of thing. So it takes it really, right now, currently it's in a couple of different locations. One is you have it at the local locations, at the county and the jurisdictional locations, where a pool builder would come in and apply for a permit, we'll say in Howard County. And they would go to that county and submit their permits. And the county would determine, first of all, okay, is this a public pool? Is this a semi-public pool? Is this a private pool? And they would bring in the appropriate Department of Health if it's a public or a semi-public pool. If it's a private pool, they take care of it themselves. But right now what you have is a patchwork of regulations for private pools across the state that this addresses, as well as updating the standards that the Department of Health currently uses for design and construction, which in some cases are over 20 years old. They're regulations that haven't been updated. Now, that's not to say anything about operation and maintenance, which is very separate, but the Department of Health hasn't updated design and construction in such a long time. So the idea is to take those and put it under the Department of Labor, who has currently the purview of the other construction, design and construction codes, the International Building Code, the International Residential Code, et cetera, and put it on the same process that they currently use in adopting the latest version of the code. And then it sets it along an every 3-year updated process to incorporate the newest design and construction standards, safety standards, techniques, et cetera. And then it gets adopted by the state, and then the locals have their own opportunity to make modifications to those particular standards. Exactly the same way as the Maryland Building Performance Standards, which again, adopt the building code and the residential code and other construction codes throughout the state of Maryland.
Okay, thank you. That helps. I see this then as adding to the safety as well. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Delegate Harrison. Let's see if we could get you unmuted.
Okay. So if different counties, can you give me an example of what may be different between counties? What type of standards might be different? I guess I'm just finding the whole thing interesting that that we don't have a standard already that is acceptable, because it is basically safe. It's a safety issue, and I know that, you know, there are for private pools, let's say, you know, you have to have, you know, a fence up around, and you have to have these types of, what might be different than that this is even warranted?
Well, I think first of all, across the counties, if you're talking about private pools, they have regulations that they have sometimes cribbed from other regulations, and they don't update on a regular basis. And so you may have different requirements for fencing, as you pointed out, or different requirements for plumbing standards or for energy efficiency standards, that creates a patchwork across the state. This would take and create that kind of bedrock, the ISPSC, as the base code. Counties still would be able to amend them, but you would at least be working from that same code. It's the exact same reason, or I'm sorry, the exact same way that the building code and the residential code are adopted, where the state goes in, adopts the most recent version, it takes in those new design and construction features, the safety features, and then it allows the counties to make their own amendments to apply to their, you know, county specific needs.
So then I guess then what's different? I mean, if the counties are doing their own, setting up their own standards right now, what would be different? I guess you're saying that it's the baseline that will be the same, and then counties can do something more stringent.
That is correct. So often in my research of what counties adopt, they typically adopt older versions of the code, or older versions of swimming pool and spa regulations that are referenced in older versions of the building and residential code. What this does is it brings everything up to date and creates that foundation for the state to move forward.
And this then is just for new construction of residential pools?
Well, this is for new construction for residential, yes, as well as public and semi-public pools. So all pools, all new construction, design and construction of all pools.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Delegate Weigel.
Yeah, so I heard what you said, but I'm a little confused about the Maryland Conference of Local Environmental Health Directors. Well, they came out in opposition to the bill and said that they actually believe the scope of the bill is too broad sweeping in nature, undermines the longstanding existing standards used for pool construction statewide, resulting in less consistency between jurisdictions. And then local jurisdictions would be left to passing ordinances and regulations if they wanted more stringent regulations. Does anyone have a comment on that?
Anyone, raise your hand. Okay, Mr. Wiley.
Thank you, Delegate. I guess I disagree with that. I mean, currently, as we pointed out, counties already have requirements on the books around design and construction of swimming pools and spas. All this does is it takes and creates uniformity across the state. So I don't understand where the person who commented came up with the additional requirements. I mean, this follows what counties do currently with the other building codes that they adopt.
Okay, I'm going to let John is you're the only one representing the opposition, so I want to give you a chance to have a stay on this, and then I'll go back to Delegate Weigel. John, we'll see if we can.
Thank you. The real issue here is that we do have a very effective code governing commercial pools. All this bill adds is protection on residential pools, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But it's all being posed as one bill, and it doesn't separate that. I have a list of 31 items that are presently in COMAR where the level of standard of safety is higher than what is presented in this code. It is perfectly normal when a national code is written, it has to match the entire country. Maryland has been fortunate. We've had a committee that works very well with the state health department since 1992 to constantly update our regulations.
Let me clarify if I could. I'm sorry to interrupt you, John, but
please.
I understand. Are you talking about the commercial pools or the residential homeowners?
Only commercial pools. Most residential pool are regulated by a national code, a builder's code, an international builder's code, and depending on which one was adopted, they do vary.
Okay, I thought that was the idea of this bill, was to include the homes in the same kind of standards that are throughout the whole industry.
Right, but if that's applied to the commercial side, this regulation is not nearly as safe as the regulations that we already have on the books from COMAR 10-1701 and are constantly revising.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to go back to Delegate Weigel because he had his hand up.
So,
go ahead.
I guess I'm a little confused that I hear that this would standardize the regulations across the entire state for all pools in the state of Maryland, basically adopting a national standard. But then I also hear it's only applying to residential. So,
Matt, can you clarify?
Can you clarify why it would only be applying to residential? I thought it was clarifying the code for everybody, commercial, semi-private, and private. Is it only apply to residential, or does it apply to everybody?
No, it would open up. It would apply to commercial and residential. It would apply to any new pool which is built or major rehabilitation of a pool, is my understanding.
So it's prospective only, right?
So it's across the board. It just doesn't open it. It just doesn't pull in residential.
Okay.
It pulls in the residential pools.
So residential aren't regulated now, or they're regulated by local code? That's what I'm confused about. I hear.
It is confusing. Okay, Mr. Strasburg.
Yes, thank you, Delegate Healy.
Wow.
I'm sorry. And I hope to try and help out here. Again, with the adoption as proposed, it would cover residential and public pools, including the semi-publics, for design and construction. And again, go back to that. Right now at the state level, there is nothing that addresses residential pools whatsoever. It is up to the localities to adopt. And there are numerous localities who do adopt the ISPSC currently. Anne Arundel, Cecil, Frederick, Montgomery, and Wacomico counties are for some examples there. So they do have the existing ISPSC adopted and are enforcing it for both residential and commercial. What I did want to point out, if I may, is the existing Maryland public health standards, health regulations for public pools. This bill would allow the Department of Labor and the Department of Health to work through any points that were raised, which were not given in depth about inconsistency. And that can be done. We will note to our knowledge that the Maryland public pool regulations have not been overviewed or updated in the recent years, and furthermore reference standards that date back into the 1990s. Again, we're in 2021 here, and with this adoption, it would put the 2021 ISPSC for Maryland pools, both residential and public and semi-public. So again, we feel we're taking one large step forward for the state of Maryland as a whole to get them the most up-to-date safety regulations for both residential and commercial pools. And if there is raised an inconsistency, for lack of a better term, I believe that's what's stated, that does allow the Department of Labor and the Department of Health through this first time period to work through any of those and work for all parties involved. So again, I just want to make that clear.
Okay, Delegate Weigel, you still have questions? Delegate Weigel, do you still have a question?
No, it's clear as mud.
Okay.
It's Delegate Hilly. It sounds to me like there are updated, I guess, international codes or standards that that the state is not at that same level as the way that I understood what Mr. Strasburg just said. I'm not sure if I'm correct, but it sounds like, you know, just all codes are constantly updated. Safety codes and internet codes are updated, and the state's codes have not been updated and they're not consistent. And I'm wondering if that's what I'm understanding.
Mr. Strasburg, is that what you meant to say?
Again, I noted that the Maryland Department of Health public pool regulations have some older standards, reference them back into the 1990s. Again, that's just a quick look at some of the standards that are referenced in the existing regulations. The 2021 ISPSC does include all those design and construction safety related standards that are updated, updated to the 2021 level, not referencing standards in the 1990s.
So it sounds like a yes.
Yes.
Okay, Delegate Terrasa.
But to be clear, the inconsistency is among the counties. There's not an inconsistency in the state code. The state code is maybe not updated in all parts. And this will bring the whole thing up to date and make a baseline for all of the counties. I mean, I want to clarify that, but I also want to say that I think this is incredibly important because there's a lot of safety features that over the years with pools have caused death or serious injury over the years. So I think that's really important. And I think the inconsistency that I understood, Mr. Wiley, I believe it was, and I also thought Mr. Strasburg was saying was the inconsistency was that all these different counties have different standards, but the state, the issue is it's not completely up to date. Like there's referencing old code. So this would allow both of those things, the consistency among the counties and the getting things up to date on the state level to happen.
Okay.
Is that
Mr. Davidson? I'm sorry, Jen, are you finished?
I just want to make sure, like, is that correct? Isn't it, Mr. Wiley, is that like, do I have that correct? I see him.
He's saying yes.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, just to note that you're dealing with two different animals here. You're dealing with private pools, which are currently done at the county level. And then you're dealing with, yes, public and semi-public pools, which are done currently through the Department of Health, as Mr. Strasburg pointed out, referencing standards that are from the 1990s. This would unify those under one code book that's recognized by the state. And it corresponds with the other building codes that are adopted at the state level. So yes.
And Mr. Davis has been waiting for a while to say something.
Yeah, that was my fault. I was applauding, not raising my hand. But
oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, I would just like to point out to Delegate Terrasa that this is being practiced in 7 different jurisdictions, most notably Anne Arundel County, Montgomery County, Baltimore City, Wacomico County. So these counties are already practicing this standard. And again, it's a statewide standard that is currently not in place. It's no different than a fuel standard or the green standard that we have and other construction standards. So this is just adding into that current existing practice. Again, the counties can make it work for them however they see fit, and health and labor will be coming together to flesh out who's doing what. This is not unprecedented. The Department of Housing and Community Development transferred certain construction codes to the Department of Labor, the regulations aspect, only a couple years ago. So this is not uncommon. And also the National Drowning Prevention Alliance is in support of this. They are very big advocates of this.
Are there any more questions about this global discussion before Matt wants to talk about the amendments, okay? That the sponsor has put together. Matt, can you go through the amendments, please?
Sure. So the amendments, all right. Apologies. So the amendments first make clear that the department shall consult with the Maryland Department of Health on the effect of any proposed changes on health and safety. And that the department shall consult with the Maryland Department of Health on the implementation of the standards here being the ISPSC, which would be adopted in the state form, in relation to the regulation of operation and maintenance of swimming pools and spas. There was also a second subsequent amendment that was added, and I'm unfortunately looking at an older document now, but you have the current document. So if you'll 1 second to pull up.
Which piece is it? The individual amendment or the reprint?
You can look at the individual. You could look at both. I'm looking at both now, but the reprint might be easier, and I can refer you to the page number in the reprint.
Okay.
That would be the definition of additions, alterations, and repairs, and it's requiring that the definition of this have the same meaning or a meaning that's stated in the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. One thing So there's the two elements: the requirement to consult with the Department of Health on operation and maintenance standards, and then as part of the standards that would be adopted, MDL would define additions, alterations, and repairs as stated in the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, and that's referencing an applicability section of the code. There was this question at the hearing on when a small change or small repair something that's minor might trigger the requirement to meet the heightened or revised standards in the ISPSC versus meeting whatever the standards were when the pool was first built. Obviously, the new standards would apply to pools that are permitted, and the new standards would apply to each swimming pool or spa in the state for which an application for a permit is received by a local jurisdiction on or after June 1, 2022. If a pool that was permitted prior to that time were to have a major or the idea was that if a pool permitted prior to that time were to have a major change performed to it, an addition, complete redesign of the filtration system, something to that extent, that new element would have to meet the revised heightened standards in place in the ISPSC. But if it were a more minor fix or repair, whatever standards were in place at the time the pool went in, those would govern. And so this second portion of the amendment is just trying to create some consistency with that idea, that applicability standard that is written into the ISPSC.
Any questions about the amendments? Can we get a motion on the amendments?
I'll move the amendments.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed, raise your hand. Seeing none, the amendments are adopted. Now, on the bill as amended, do you want to continue discussion or do you want to vote? What's your pleasure?
Vote.
Honestly, I'm confused about the whole bill. I'm going to abstain if you want to vote. I don't really care. if you
It's
wanna
okay.
vote,
I
but-
think we've had a lot of discussion and maybe people need to kind of digest it a little bit. So we can put this off till the next time we meet, but then be prepared to vote one way or the other at the next meeting of this subcommittee. But we have 2 more bills to talk about. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So now, the next bill is, let's see, it's House Bill 517, Delegate Watson's bill on the Clean Energy Loan Program. Matt, would you just walk us through it quickly?
Sure. So this bill would expand the types of projects that may be financed under a clean energy loan program that's enacted by a county or municipality. Would add water efficiency projects, environmental remediation projects, and resiliency projects, all of which are defined in the bill. Would also allow for refinancing of these projects under the Clean Energy Loan Program. So these are programs that currently exist. There are counties that participate in them already. This just expands the types of projects that could be funded with loans from these programs. There is an amendment on the bill, and the amendment would actually conform the bill to the Senate version, which is now on 3rd reader in the Senate.
Okay.
And that
so-
amendment, that amendment would add grid resiliency projects. So just another project type that could be funded with these loans.
Is there a motion on the amendment? Are there questions about the bill? Delegate Weigel.
Yeah, so I see the bill talks about asbestos and lead-based paint remediation and stuff and all. Would those be the examples of types of projects that could be funded now that aren't funded?
Let me just, 1 second, let me just switch to that folder.
And are these available for what, local governments, or who are the loans available to?
So a local government could fund,
Excuse me.
Bless you.
bless you.
That's you.
A local government could fund in its capacity residential improvements as well as commercial improvements under current law and under the law as amended. So it wouldn't change the operation of this in any way. Private financing could also be used to serve it, to issue and make loans, these particular types of loans for commercial properties. So it's something that the local governments would have to authorize in local law before the loans could be made.
So do the loans go to the local government, or do the loans go to the private individual through local government?
It depends on who's issuing the loan. If the local government were to issue the loan, then the revenue generated from the loan, the servicing fees, any interest and whatnot would go back to the local government. If they were going through private financing, and Jessa Coleman is on the call, and she represents one of the private groups that manages the commercial loans, it would go back to the loan servicer, like any other secured any other securitized loan. Part of what makes these a little bit different is that they are sorry, I'm searching to find the words. They're treated as a tax lien on the property. So the loan in effect runs with the property, not with the person. Somebody who's selling the property would then assume the tax lien and continue to pay off the improvement. It's all part of the property tax bill on the property.
Okay. And
So it would just be
I'm assuming that loan would be fully disclosed in any settlement papers. As far, I mean, there's no chance of someone buying a property and not knowing it has this outstanding loan on it, is it?
I remember that question being asked at the hearing, and the answer was that yes, there'd be a disclosure. The loans themselves are recorded, is my understanding.
Okay.
So it would be found in a title search. Should be found in a title search.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to ask Jessica Coleman if she wants to say anything about this before we continue the conversation.
Yes, can you all hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I just wanted to add some additional clarification to what Matt shared. Matt, thank you so much. So just for those of you on the call, my name's Jessica Coleman. I'm the Senior Manager of Programs at Pace Financial Servicing. We work with the Maryland Clean Energy Center, not to actually offer the loans, but we administer these clean energy loan programs across the state for those counties that have decided to offer the clean energy loan program. Another name that this program goes by is a Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, or PACE, the Maryland PACE program. You may have heard of that. So we are the administrators of the Maryland PACE program. The financing for these loans, also called or assessments, come from private capital providers solely at this time. There is a provision in the existing statute that allows local governments to provide municipal bond funding for these projects, but no local government has as yet opted to do that. So all of the projects that have been completed in the state thus far have been financed through private financing. And yes, I can confirm that these assessments are recorded in the land records and are therefore fully disclosed in case of transfer of property.
Okay. Any questions now? Okay. Can we adopt the amendments?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, the amendments are adopted. On the bill as amended, is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I do have a question though.
Okay.
It's titled Clean Energy Loan Program and it's expanding the eligibility. Are we changing the title from energy? Because it,
No, there was no amendment, or there was no change to the title of the program.
it extends it to more than just energy projects now. It seems like it's
Yes.
mislabeled.
Oh, I would, that is something that the subcommittee could consider. Right now, this amendment, the form it's in, simply conforms to the Senate version, and that.
The Senate bill is on third reader on the Senate floor, right?
Yes, and I just verified that there were no additional amendments to the Senate version of the bill. So it would, if voted, it would come over to the House in its current form, the form that you would vote to amend to.
Yeah, it just seems mistitled, that's all.
Do you have recommendation for a change in the title?
Yeah,
why or does Matt?
Why don't you submit an amendment?
Well, I mean, then it screws up the Senate cross file, but.
Yeah, it will.
And perhaps there wasn't a change because that is where the funding is coming from through that particular program, as opposed to
Right.
it just being a clean energy, so to
Yeah.
speak.
I mean, it no longer just applies to energy, so that's.
But maybe it's a program that already exists.
Next year's bill, maybe.
You can rename it. Okay, so all those in favor of the bill as we have amended to match the Senate, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the bill is, as amended, is adopted by the committee. So we'll make that recommendation to the full committee. If you come up with a good amendment to offer in the voting session, Bill.
One thing, just to note, Delegate Wava, I understand the wanting to have a more consistent name. I'm just looking at page 3 of the bill, section 1103, that outlines the purposes of this of the program is to provide loans for, and it does add in these new projects. So I would argue it would purely just be a misnomer at this point, but the intent of the program is clear, and the projects would be covered.
Yeah, I
regardless.
said it just seems to be mislabeled. That's all.
Sure.
Yep.
The bill next year. Okay, and the last bill of the day, which I hope will not require a whole lot of discussion, but we'll see. Let me see. I gotta get my.
That's HB 563.
That's right. That's the animal control facility. This is about for veterans letting or require, and this does require local governments to waive the adoption fee for pets who are adopted by veterans. And a lot of them do it already.
I would move favorable, although it's a local mandate.
It is, and I know that you don't like those.
I don't.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 I'm sorry. Did anybody want to discuss this bill? I'm sorry.
There's nothing to discuss.
So
It's a
the
good
one
bill.
thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't have a problem with the bill. I guess I was just trying to, never mind. I see the answer right here. I was trying to scan it real quick and just wanted to make sure that they could actually verify that they were a veteran, but I see that on the driver's.
That's
it
correct.
includes a notation that, they're a veteran, so.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good. We got some work done today.
Yay.
And just stay tuned for when we'll meet again. We don't want to, we're kind of the orphans of the operation because so many of the other committees have really heavy schedules. So this is probably the meatiest stuff that we're going to do. Most of what we'll do will be local courtesy and we will go over it very quickly. But we do have to get back to the 109. So next time, look at it, think about it, and be prepared to vote next time.
And if there are specific questions on 109, I apologize. That one had been a carryover. Please let me know ahead of time. I'd be happy to come with those questions answered and prepared and ready to facilitate the discussion. Hopefully.
And if you have any amendments, make sure that you get them.
MACO or MML didn't weigh in on that bill, did they?
They did not. They did not offer any sort of.
Can we ask them if they have opinions on it or not?
Sure, we can. Of course we can. We can.
And they were invited today. I'm hoping that they weren't in the waiting room. I can't see the waiting room.
All right, so Matt, will you do that? See if they have
Sure.
any opinions on the bill? Okay.
Yeah, I will. I'll check in with MACO and MML on those bills. On that bill.
Great.
Very good.
Thanks.
Anybody else for the good of the group? Okay, then we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Bye.
Hey.
Bye.
Bye.
It's my cursor.
All right. Okay. Blake, how'd it go? Are you there?
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting myself. I hope it went well for you guys. It went perfect for me.
Okay, good. Good. Thank you so much.